Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing Last Flag Flying. It's directed by Richard Linklater, stars Steve Carell, Bryan Cranston and Laurence Fishburne. This is the story of Larry Shepard, or Doc as he's known, played by Steve Carell, who upon finding out his son has been killed in action in Iraq, goes on a journey to pick up his son's body. Along that way, he goes to rekindle whatever friendship he had with two men he served with. One is Sal, played by Bryan Cranston, who owns a bar now and is a bit of a loud mouth and causes a bit of trouble, and uses alcohol to deal with his problems. And he also finds Richard Mueller, who's now a reverend, which they can't believe because he was a bit of a troublemaker, a bit of a wild man back in the service. He lets them know what's happening and they reluctantly go on this journey with him to pick up his son's body. Things don't go according to plan. When they go to pick the son's body up, they find out information they didn't know about how his son actually died. He decides he wants to take his son's body back to his hometown and bury him there, and not in the Arlington Cemetery where a lot of the people in the service are buried once they have died. So the army sort of helps him. They go on this trip together. They go on a train, a car, and they do all these things to try and get his son's body home. And along the way, they rekindle their friendship that they had almost 30 years ago when they served in the service together. And their lives are very different from that point to now. But it's very interesting to see these characters interact with each other and talk about what's happening for them at the moment and try and get back to that sort of friendship they had all those years ago. And there's a lot of things that happen along the way. There's a lot of funny moments and dramatic moments, all leading to this man sharing this tragedy with two of his friends that he hasn't seen in years. I really like this film. I think Richard Linklater is a really, really talented filmmaker. And with him, what I really like is the fact that he doesn't always do the same thing. Like, he does different genres, can do dramas, different stories, he has different ideas and concepts. Very highly intelligent man, and he produces these really wonderful sort of real films. And this is definitely one of those films. It feels very real. The characters are sort of real, and the situations feel very real. Sometimes I think there's some improvising going on there, but you can't really tell when they are improvising and when it's scripted because it's so well put together, and they're so well acted. All his films are like that, and they create great atmosphere and flawed characters that sort of have to make a decision a lot of the times, but it's interesting to follow them. They're always very interesting characters. This is based on the book, and is a sequel of sorts to The Last Detail, which had Jack Nicholson and Randy Quaid in it. This is a book that was written 44 years later. I guess the author still had something to say about the whole story, and we meet these characters 30 years after The Last Detail. Obviously, they're not played by the same people. We have, Larry Fishburne, Bryan Cranston and Steve Carell all playing those sort of characters, and Cranston's playing the Jack Nicholson sort of character. This has some really, really great moments. It walks a great line between and has a great balance between comedy and drama, and it handles it really well. And the characters are very real and the situation is very real. But there's a lot of fun to be had here. It's a journey of these three men, all trying to rekindle their friendship and rekindle what relationships they did have 30 years previous. The acting is really, really great. Linklater's picked three really great actors. Bryan Cranston, I think, is really great in this sort of role. He's sort of boisterous and outgoing and speaks his mind, very loud and can be annoying at times. But he has a sort of great heart, and he's a very interesting character to watch. And him and Laurence Fishburne bouncing off each other is really funny and fantastic to see these two great actors bouncing off each other. But to me, I think Steve Carell's a real star of this film. He underplays his character so well. You feel everything he's feeling. You can understand, to a point what he's going through, and you can see what it's doing to him. And he has some really great moments within that, really dramatic moments, which we've seen many times from Carell, especially with Foxcatcher and movies like that, where he's showing his dramatic side. But he also shows his humour and makes his character very real. and present, and it's very interesting to watch. And all three men working together, some three great actors bouncing off each other, is really great to watch, and it's fascinating to see these great actors doing what they do best. And look, it has dramatic moments, and these moments are so powerful and so effective. When they're telling the story about previous stuff they went through when they served, when they're talking about, when Larry's talking about his son and what he means to him, and how it sort of affected him, and he talks about how he, his wife passed away, and there's a variety of things that he does through this film that are really great. And I found myself sort of captivated by their performances and the story. It just sort of sucks you in. It's very real and gritty, like most of Richard Linklater's other films, and it's just a great story. It's a great concept, I think, to see these characters from The Last Detail older now, and what the world is like for them, what their lives are like after the events of the last film. And we really get to see that. And it's a really interesting film. And I think Linklater really does a really terrific job here. There's one scene in particular on a train where they're discussing stuff they'd been through, the highlights and memories of when they were in the war together in Vietnam. And I have not laughed so hard in a long, long time. This is one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Carell and Bryan Cranston bouncing off each other, two great comedians, delivering some really funny dialogue, some great humorous moments and jokes. It's fantastic to watch, and I cried laughing. It is the funniest scene you'll ever see. I won't give too much away about it, but you'll understand the scene when you do see it. There's also really great moments where these three men, Larry and Steve Carell's Larry, is talking to this guy that his son served with, and telling him information that he wasn't aware of. And it's such a great, powerful scene, and it says a lot about war and the point of war, and how that affects people on just the smallest level, how it affects families, how it affects men who have families and go on with life, how it affects them, and how war today is affecting many people. And I think it really captures that. It has something to say about that. It's after 9/11, so it talks a little bit about that as well. And it looks at different things that were happening at that time. It's set in 2003, so that's like 15 years. 15 years ago this film's set, and it's talking about those events that happened within that period. And I think Linklater's very truthful what he's talking about here, but handles the material very, very well. I'm very impressive with what he's able to create here on a cinematic level, and it's very impressive. And it's one of the best films I think he has come out with. Look, final verdict, if you like Richard Linklater films, you really love this. If you like a really good story with really great acting that's dramatic and humorous, this is definitely something for you as well. If you like any one of the actors, you'll really thoroughly enjoy this as well, because they all give really great performances. And it's great to see them all working together on screen. Look, I'm going to give this 4 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed it. And I want to see more of Richard Linklater. Every time I hear a film of his coming out, I rush to see it, because I really like what he has to say and what he does as a filmmaker. Anyway, that's all from me today. If you've liked what you've heard, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.